What in the world is up, guys? So today, as promised, I'm back with another video. As you can see, we're going to be talking about today a very important topic once again, and I'm very excited because, as I mentioned, it is Autoimmune Disease Awareness Month, and so I figured why not take the time to talk about something a little bit more broad, something more applicable to the autoimmune community in general. So today I'm kind of gonna just focus on talking about how I personally deal with having a chronic illness. It is a little bit different from my usual videos. Usually I will take, I would say at least, oh my gosh, this thing is like showing. Usually take like at least 2 weeks to plan a single video. Today is kind of different. I figured I would just do a raw video, not really any edits or anything like that, because one, it's kind of late, and two, I underestimated how busy and crazy and emotional this week would be. And so it is like Thursday night. I post on Fridays, but I figured I don't want to let you guys down, so here I am filming on the Thursday night. Excuse me if I look a little bit tired. It's just been a very long day, but I'm here. So I'm going to be giving you a little bit of advice, tips that I use to get through a day with autoimmune disease. So yeah, let's get right into it. Okay, so really quick, I do want to put out there that these are all kind of just general tips. You could use them. If you don't feel like using them, that's okay too. These are just what I personally use to kind of get through the day. Through the day, you can see probably why I edit and stuff. But basically, I'm going to cover mainly things that help with mental and emotional things. Excuse me if it's loud outside. I don't know, there's just like a car thinks you can go like 60 miles per hour. What was I gonna say? In terms of like, specifically in my case, I was in a time or in a season where my kidneys, again, my kidneys weren't filtering 100%, and so they had to have me on what they call diuretics. If any of you out there have been through some sort of kidney disorder, then you know what I'm talking about. And so what that does is that it makes you go to the bathroom constantly. And so it got to the point where I had to have diapers, like, you know, your typical grown-up diapers and stuff. Those were the ones that I was using, just kind of to deal with the, you know, the accidents that I would have. And so things like that, it's always good to have those kinds of things. I'll be doing like a separate must-haves video in terms of like lupus and things like that, but I do think that in terms of like living with a chronic illness, you do have to have must-haves, like your go-to things that you can just carry all the time, to, you know, just to kind of have with you in the case of any accident or something like that. That's more like the physical aspect. So now I kind of want to talk about like what I do to stay mentally and emotionally stable-ish, just so I don't go crazy with the whole situation. But first thing is, well, most of these things are things that are not necessarily like gonna fix any issues. At the end of the day, that's why it's dealing with chronic illness, because you can't do anything much except for deal with the reality of what we're going through. So I kind of just say this with the best intention, kind of alleviate, kind of help you see things through a different lens. And so the first one that I wanted to bring up was hobbies, because hobbies are really good for helping you, you know, find not only like things that you're good at or things that, you know, you enjoy, but can help you realize, you know, you can make an opportunity that you didn't necessarily know was there prior to that. So for example, like with, well, I'm gonna say with like a couple of ones. So I picked up drawing and coloring and painting, and honestly, I I wasn't ever the best or the worst drawer, and I had never painted before, but you know, through the quarantine, since we had all this time or whatever, like I was able to kind of like build a little bit of the skills that I had, and that kind of like helped me to deal, or like not necessarily to deal with, but it distracted me a lot from not necessarily the physical pain, but the mental things that I was going through. And so that really helped to distract me and gave me something to do. Another thing is like YouTube. So I always said that I wanted to have a YouTube channel, and it wasn't until now. And so instead of using the excuse like, oh, you know, I'm just gonna sit here and not do anything or whatever, just let time pass, I figured, you know, first of all, life is too short. I don't know how long I'll necessarily have, so why not get to at least try doing something that I always told myself that I would do. Another thing would be like reading a book or Bible study. Those are just things that I personally feel help me a lot. They're hobbies that I personally believe, not necessarily a hobby for the Bible study, but just reading books in general. They also help me to just distract my mind and keep me, you know, interested, help me to keep learning. I personally, even though I guess like hobbies are supposed to be for like fun and stuff, but like especially like in a time now, learning something new actually does become exciting because we're locked up all the time, and it's not like we're really gaining any new experiences being locked up in our houses. So at least for me, learning and reading has really become more of like a fun or exciting thing because we're not so much exposed to it anymore. I don't know if that makes me sound lame or not, but that's just my personal experience. Other, I guess, falls also under the hobby thing, but one of the things that I personally feel that helped me a lot was journaling. I actually have my little journal here. This is the one that I used when, you know, I still use it now, but more like when I first started out, like in the beginning of the year. This is where I set all of my yearly goals. If I have any sort of idea for my channel, I'll put them in here as well. And like, yeah, it's like basically just journaling. I'll have like goals set in here, and or like my bucket list. Those two are like things that I personally feel really do help me to look forward to something in the future and not focus so much on the present. In terms of like your condition is different looking forward to something as to just focusing your entire energy and effort into the future or the present, or vice versa. Especially when we're going through something like this, I think that it is important to do things like goal setting and bucket lists, and, you know, even writing certain dreams that you might have, because I feel like even writing them down gives us a little bit more of encouragement when we start seeing these certain things come to life. So in terms of the bucket list, I know a lot of people will write on their bucket list things like, I don't know, like where they want to travel or things like that. But I kind of got this idea from this girl that I met in Tampa. Unintentionally stalked her page or whatever, and I kind of came across this bucket list that she had made when she was going through a difficult time, get off this certain medication and things like that. And I think that once you use those as goals, I guess, even though you to some extent don't necessarily have all of the control over that, when you start to see them come true, it does give you a boost. It just helps to encourage you to just keep going, and it just overall gives you more hope that, you know, when you start looking back at like what you've accomplished or what you've checked off, it does really help you to put things in perspective and see that you know, see how far you've come from the beginning. Something that I have been doing, just so you guys can kind of see like the ones that I may not show you this year because we're still in 2021, but like from last year, these are like this is like my bucket list basically, and everything that's been checked off is what I've been able to overcome or to check off of the list basically. So like, for example, it says gain 15 pounds. I was at one point last year weighing 92 pounds when I had dropped from 140 to 92 pounds. And so one of my goals was to gain weight. And so clearly I've been able to do that. I've been able to get off of certain medications that I have on here. I've been able to get myself out of bed, shower by myself, walk a block, bathe my dog, drive, things like that. That I honestly, when I wrote this down, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do that, but I wrote it down, and now that I look at it, it's very encouraging to see that I was able to check those things off. And so I really encourage you guys, whatever condition that you guys might have, to do a bucket list specifically for things like that, as well as other things. So like I also have like different sections. So like for fun things like cooking a meal, attending a church service, trying new cuisines, things like that, that I also wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do, but got to do, or that I'm doing now. So I think that the journaling specifically is a good way to encourage us mentally and emotionally. Another thing that I encourage is finding ways to distract yourself. So I think that it's a little bit different from hobbies, because in terms of hobbies, I think that they're a little bit harder to I guess find something that really interests you or that challenges you, especially when you're in that situation. But in terms of like distractions and things like that, I think that they're a little bit more available, or something that doesn't necessarily have to come from our part to go out and find them. They're more things like, things that are more accessible to us, especially when we're in a very difficult situation, or when, let's say, if we're going through the most, I guess, difficult stages of whatever condition that we might have, like Netflix, I don't know, whatever. If you're like learning something new, I put that in the hobbies and stuff, but like that goes along with, like, you don't necessarily have to read a book to learn something. You can talk to someone, you can I don't know, on our phones we can look something up, some sort of video that we can learn something new. Things like joining a group, like a support group. Nowadays with COVID and stuff, they'll have some even online support groups that you can join and just kind of see what people are commenting on, different news that surround specifically whatever condition that you're, or community that you're a part of. And so I'm currently in 2 lupus community groups online on Facebook, and then I also have my like my church group that I go to and things like that to really help me like surround myself with people that can encourage me or that can relate to me and things like that. And then I also have here things like Netflix, probably the easiest one that most people will do if they have nothing else or they can't literally do anything. But if you find like a good Netflix show to keep you engaged and get your mind off of yourself and things like that, to kind of distract you, then that's also good. Lastly, I wanted to point out, in terms of distractions, pets, because not only do I love pets, but I think that they make really, really good distractions and emotional support when we're going through things like this, because I'm not gonna say for the same reason that most people say, because I'm selfish in terms of pets. Most people will say because they kind of give you a sense of responsibility to get out of your bed if they need to be fed or walked or whatever. Then that way it gives you like a sense of responsibility that you need to go and get up and do something even if you don't feel like it. But I'm going to be more selfish about it and say for the purpose of emotional support, because in my case, I actually wasn't able to, for the first few months, get out of bed at all. So, like on my own, let alone walk my dog out or feed it or anything like that. And thank God I had other people living in the house that could do that for me. But they were still there, especially my dog Tyler. They have a way of sensing when something is wrong with their owners. And I'm gonna be honest, I honestly think before anyone else knew, Tyler was the first one to recognize that there was something wrong with me. And because of that bond that we have together, he was also always there by my side, even if he didn't, show any sort of like happy emotion or anything like that. But every time that I looked over my bed or something, he was always by my side. Before even I went to the hospital, he was the one sniffing like the infected area on my belly and my kidneys and things like that. Like he knew not to jump on me like how he did before when he would get excited and things like that. He would always be very careful and comforting with me. And so I do encourage, if you can, and if you're allowed to, then I would suggest getting a pet. They will just sit there with you all day and they don't mind it or anything. Lastly, I kind of wanted to end it on a couple of advice points that I have for you guys in dealing with chronic illness. In the Bible, talks about not worrying about tomorrow. I know that that's kind of contradictory to what I was talking about with the bucket list and stuff, but it's very different thinking about setting goals for the future and worrying about the future, because first of all, tomorrow has enough to worry about itself, as the Bible says, and we don't get anything out of worrying for things that we have no control over. I don't think that we should limit ourselves by something that we don't necessarily are sure about, that we're not necessarily sure about. So with that being said, a lot of my stress in terms of the advice that I'm going to give came from worrying about the future, worrying about the present, but especially the future. And that all came from the next few points that I'm going to talk about. The main thing that we should do in terms of dealing with our chronic illness is taking it one day at a time. It's easy to just think of everything all at once when you're getting thrown all of this new information at once, or if you're feeling all these different symptoms at once. And so it's easy to just worry about everything at once, but it's just going to cause you stress. And I already talked about the bad effects of stress in the other video, but it's ultimately not going to bring us any, it's not going to make us any better to think about tomorrow and the next day and what will happen years from now, because no one knows what will even happen like within the next few minutes. No one knows, because if we're already setting certain expectations for our future, then we're not really allowing that time and future to take place on its own. And for things like even miracles or the impossible to, I know that was kind of weird, but it doesn't allow us to even make space for miracles or for the impossible to occur in our situation. When I first went into, I guess, treatment or whatever, I didn't give myself that time to mourn, really. When I got diagnosed, I guess, I didn't really think about it too much, even though what I was understanding was that yes, that I would have a certain condition for the rest of my life, but because I didn't give myself that time to mourn, and then it hit those months that I was really struggling, it became really hard for me to even think that it could get any better from there. So I had a really hard time thinking or even hoping for, a future for myself. Okay, I just realized I'm like rambling, which is a result of me being like super tired. Basically, I just wanted to say that give ourselves the time to mourn, so that when difficult times come, so we can kind of get it out of our system and give ourselves a clear mind. Second thing that or the third, whichever one that we're on, I wanted to also talk about comparing ourselves to other people, because that was also an issue for me. When I did start kind of feeling a little bit better, I noticed myself comparing myself to a lot of my older friends, or like people that I went to high school with, or people that I like, people that I just know, how they are all kind of like in their careers that they want to do already, working or whatever the case may be, married. And I have none of those now. I had to put all of those things on pause, and I naturally would compare myself to these people and say, well, I would just basically feel like, I'm never going to be able to do these things now because of my condition, and it's very much a limitation to the way that I can approach this now, I originally wanted to be, or I still do want to be, but I wanted to finish school by, I guess, I would have been done either by this year or the beginning of next year, so for vet school and things like that, and I had to put that off and not go to school or work because of my diagnosis and things like that. And so I'm just rambling again, but basically because I would compare myself to people, I just didn't see how that would be happening now, disregarding any sort of potential that could happen in the future. And I'm a little bit better with that now. I know that, you know, eventually everything happens in its time. If that's what I'm eventually supposed to do, if that's what I'm supposed to do in my life, then that's something that will happen regardless of my condition. And if it doesn't happen, then I think that we should all at least give ourselves the opportunity, if we can, to try and not limit ourselves. I was actually at the doctor's office today. I was seeing my rheumatologist, and while I was leaving, checking out, I actually had a conversation with one of the receptionists / nurses that checked me out. And so she was also, we were kind of just talking first about like the COVID vaccine, if I should get it, if I shouldn't get it. And she kind of falls in the same boat of pre-existing conditions, and so she's in that boat trying to get the COVID vaccine and everything. But inspiring for me to see her working in that environment, even though she does have a pre-existing condition. It's not lupus like me, but it is, you know, difficult to have any condition to begin with that limits or that places certain boundaries on you to get to whatever goal that you're trying to get to. She basically just told me that, you know, we're gonna have labels regardless, whether it be for our pre-existing condition or economic situation or family situation or whatever the case may be. There's always going to be some sort of label that will try to hinder us from getting to where our goals are. And ultimately, we're responsible for I guess letting or not letting those obstacles rob us from at least trying. And so hearing that honestly just very much inspired me and encouraged me to keep going, because honestly, if I'm honest with you guys, I wasn't sure that I wanted to do a YouTube video this week, because it was just overall a difficult week for me, and even like today and things like that, and so I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep going with the whole YouTube thing or whatever. But she really did inspire me after having that talk with her and with my rheumatologist, the things that he said to me and the advice that he gave me. It just overall just kind of put me back on track on what I want to do, and to not let my condition, you know, being so big of an obstacle. I mean, it's a big obstacle in itself. I don't need to be adding more, giving it more power than it already has. And so I'm not gonna let that be the reason for me not trying or not pursuing certain things that I've been telling myself for the longest time that I want to do. That's one of the things that I think I always tell myself, you know, each and every day. I want to live my day by the day and do as much as I can today, as much as my body allows me to. And if I can't get to something, then that's ultimately not my fault, and I shouldn't feel bad for it. It's my body's fault, and my body isn't necessarily a replica or equal to me as a person. We're not, I mean, this is just all flesh, and our personality, our soul, our spirit, those are all not non-flesh things. And so I don't think that we should be defined by things like that. I think that we should look at our inside and use that to build ourselves up. So I know this video has kind of been all over the place, just because, like I said, it's been a long week, it's been a long day, and but I also didn't want to leave you guys hanging. I did want to put in the effort, like I said. and I got that little boost of energy and encouragement today, so I didn't want to end the week without putting up a video. So I hope you guys understand, and I really hope that this will help you guys in some way. And so we'll see you guys in the next video.